with us in spirit. I sent him a note asking him for his little tidbits of advice, and he came back with. Can y'all see the document that I'm sharing my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah. He said, always push back on everything. So it's like, when do we push back? Well, always, everything, all the time, till it's 100% done. And I've found myself asking ever since I started this job frequently, knowing that we probably have the top physician recruiter on planet Earth working with us. I frequently ask myself, WWJD, whenever I'm faced with, what do? I say WWJD, and what would Jeremiah do? And I try to, kind of, if it's something I think he'd do, then I'd copy that. So I'd take Jeremiah's advice to heart. Although lately, based on the kind of year she's having, I think I'm soon going to be asking myself, WTF WTCD, which is short for what the would Tina Colbert do? Give it up. Come on. So anyway.
We're all muted. Otherwise, you'd hear us laughing. That was great.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks. So what I don't really think I need to talk about today is pushing back with candidates. That's a whole different area. It's what we do all the time, every minute. But there is one thing, when I was talking with Dave a few days ago, that we kind of agreed was just a necessary thing to always push back with clients, and that is with candidates. Sorry, when a candidate tells you he's already talking to somebody, or already been introduced to somebody, or whatever, that he's already working with somebody, we don't take that for fact. Unless we know for sure that it's a fact, we still send the name clear. And there's been literally dozens of times where a candidate has told me that they're working with somebody, and I've still got their name cleared. And in fact, just a couple of days ago, I had the candidate tell me that this Ibrahim guy out in Central Washington with Confluence told me he's already working with the recruiter in Moses Lake, so he didn't need me to introduce him there. And what he meant was that he got me mixed up with somebody else, and I was the guy that he told me he was already working with, so he was just mixed up. So I sent him out there. I got him cleared. So just that's something to keep in mind, to always push back with a candidate who tries to tell you that they're already working. Until we know it for sure, we still try. Another thing I don't think we should really be talking about much today is things like fee disputes or clears being rescinded. I think those are such serious, important matters that we take those right to our manager. And that's what I do whenever I even catch wind whatsoever that there's any problem with the fee. I don't do it on my own. I call Dave or I call Jerry, and we work through that together. So that's the kind of pushback I don't want to do on my own, and I'm not going to do according to much of what I'm talking about today. What today is mostly about is early life cycle, and getting the name cleared and getting the CV presented. I think the reason that's the most important thing to have a list of rules that you follow is because without the CV send out, we can't make any money, and it's the first thing we do. And so the vast majority of the time that I'm really trying to convince a client to do something that they've told me they wouldn't, it's getting a CV sent. Likewise, certainly early on in the cycle, trying to get that first call set up with a client. I think it's important to put our focus on on that early part today. And I also, versus the minutia of specific word tracks and specific things we do in every case, I think to talk more concerning overall strategy and guiding principles to pushing back with clients. There's a lot of the reason that I want to talk more concerning name clears and send outs is because it's once a potential placement is closer to the money, it becomes more complicated. If there's if a candidate's getting turned down in the later stages, it's very often because, for instance, the surgical group doesn't like their skill set or something, and we can't do much to change that, or we can't do anywhere near as much, for instance, as we could with a hospital employee trying to get them to clear a name. So, for instance, earlier this week, I was talking with Dave. I have a candidate, Dr. Geronimo, out in Phoenix with Tenet, and he's already interviewed, and they're still interviewing other candidates. And Dave says, well, why don't you ask the group to go ahead and cancel the other interviews and just hire this guy, because he's a bird in the hand and he'll take the job if it's offered. And it's like, so I served that up to the client, and the client came right back and says, no, we're going to interview these guys. But so it's like, my chance of changing a bunch of heart surgeons' mind about whether or not they're going to hire a surgeon it's pretty small, but my chance of changing a hospital recruiter's mind about whether they're going to accept CV is pretty big. So that's where I want to put the focus today. I did get some. There's a document that I can send out to everyone. I got some good feedback from Ian, from Jeremiah, from Tina, from Peter, and from Chris Wolf, with some stories about some of the things they've done that resulted in placements, and where they turned a no into a yes, and versus kind of going through those in detail. You really should read the stories and get some ideas of what you can do in similar type of circumstances. So please read those. They're further down in this document that you're viewing now. I realized earlier in the week when I started working on this that there's a kind of an overall issue for me with getting in where I'm into a groove with getting send outs done and moving candidates forward, and it in a way it kind of breaks up that groove to take issue with a client, or to try to change a client's mind, because I just want to work with the yeses. I don't want to deal with the no's. And it really came up earlier with Emily Whitehouse in upstate New York at the University of Rochester. We've quite a few of you have been working on. They have about 4 or 5 hospitalist positions, and I think Curari is going to make a placement soon with one of these jobs, because there's a lot of openings. And I had a candidate, Dr. Petricino, reply to an email that I sent for one of their jobs, and he said, and I looked the guy up, and he's working right in their area, like 40 miles east of or west of Syracuse. And all they did was ask me where the location was, and I thought, man, this guy could be good. So I immediately sent the name clear just to see, because I figure he's working there. They've got to know him, but I want to see if it's worth my time. So let's just clear the name first. And Emily came back with that she was she had enough candidates. And I was, at the time, I was in my car when I got her email, and she said, "Yeah, we have enough candidates." And my first impulse was, just, okay, that sucks. I thought this guy was going to work. I mean, that was my first impulse. Then I started thinking about it like, oh no, wait a minute. This guy's solid. He's experienced. He lives right there. I don't want to take no for an answer on this guy. And so my first impulse was not to do what I'm suggesting everybody does and what everybody in this company does all the time, and that is to push back right away. And my first impulse was just to kind of take it, and then I started thinking about it more. And what I didn't think just for a second was, well, if she had the guy, she would have already said no. She wouldn't have said, "I'm not taking any more candidates." And so I get home and I'm getting ready to write my email to her, and lo and behold, on her own, she wrote me back and said, "Hey, if this guy's experienced, send a CV. We just don't want any 2026 grads, but we'll take experienced hospitalist." So I was going to go a certain direction at first, and then I changed my mind. And by the time that she came to her senses, I'd already anticipated what she was going to do anyway. So that's when the next several bullets are on this mindset I think that we need to have about pushing back with a client, and that I think this little story with Emily and Dr. Petricino kind of covers a lot of those, and that, that if I'm doing my job properly, my willingness and desire to push back it's automatic, it's consistent, it's persistent. It it is situational, but it's always there. I'm never just going to roll over and say, okay, they're not clear. I'm going to look at it and I'm going to try, and that's under the nothing to lose bullet there. That's as long as I'm respectful and businesslike, there is no, when a candidate's not getting moved forward or not getting cleared or whatever, if I ask why and get details and try to make it different, then I have nothing to lose there and everything to gain. So why not? And I thought, to choose your battles wisely. So much of that's because, like for instance, if there's some doc I'm sending to 20 different places and he's a long shot, I'm not going to try to send a CV if there's a 0% chance, but if there's a tiny kernel of a chance, I'm going to send the CV. And but I might not want to push back in every case equally, but in a case like this, Dr. Petricino, I had a guy right in their backyard who's interested, and they didn't know the guy. And it's like, if ever there's a time to fight back, it's a setup like that. A doc handed to me that where my marketing got the guy in the door, and they don't know him. And that should be, I should do everything possible. So that should be the first order of business for me because it's such a good opportunity. To have a compelling reason to push back. If I don't have some, versus just saying, come on, let me send this doctor over, please, versus here's a good reason. This is in your best interest to clear this candidate for me. And, we call ourselves consultants. Very often I think we have a better sense for what's in that hospital recruiter's best interest than the hospital recruiter themselves does. We know the candidate's a good one for them, and it's our job to emphasize our relationship with the candidate. Like if a situation comes up like the the client tells us they have enough candidates, then we need to, if it is indeed true, we need to emphasize that our relationship with the candidate is such that we can get that candidate on the phone with them, and our candidate's better than all these other ones that we don't even know about. So we're trying to be of service to the client and make the client's job easier. And the extent that we can do that is the extent that we'll be able to get the client to change their mind. There's some great stuff from Tina down below that you can read about how she's built trust with a couple of specific clients who she's done a lot of pushing back with. And based on this trust, when she asks them to do something different, they're much more likely to do it. So I think that's something we can all do with all of our clients, and that is, have them take us seriously, so that when we say, hey, look, we think you should do this, they know that we're just not saying that to say it, that we really mean it. Another overall theme to virtually anything I do, especially when it comes to pushing back with clients, is I bring in my manager or others in leadership in this company. We have something like 120 years of recruiting experience between the Daves and Ian and Jerry and Logan and Jeremiah, and we should use that. And especially as it gets closer to the money. I'm sure your manager's already working with you on those deals anyway, but so often I encounter a situation I haven't seen before. And I mean, once a week, and I go right to Dave Bick, because chances are he's seen it. He's been doing this 20 or I don't know, some number of years longer than me. It was 15 or whatever. He's seen way more stuff than I have. And so why wouldn't I use his expertise versus trying to do it on my own? And I'm not afraid of looking like a dumbass, I'm like I'm just kind of like, hey, Dave, have you seen this before? And, it's just been invaluable to me to have Dave and the leadership team here as a resource. Every year we make placements. I've made a handful myself, and every year we make placements of physicians that were turned down because they were already in our client's systems, or the client knew of them, or whatever the client came back with in terms of not clearing the name. And every year we make, I don't have the data, but several placements of those exact physicians. So it's got to work, and it's got to be your policy to press and find out why when the client tells us that a physician isn't clear. There's some great word tracks. Ian sent me a couple of pages earlier this week, and I just want you to read it. There's no need to kind of go through it right now, but it's great word tracks for precisely what we can say when a client won't clear a name for a number of different reasons. And I've personally had several where, like I had a doc once got off the phone with me and self-introduced, like right away. And, all but the lousiest clients would be in good faith if you write them and say, oh, hey, well, I caused that guy to do that. And they're going to take us on our word. So I immediately went, and I didn't have the doctor's CV, but I virtually had to beg the doctor to send me a CV. And he goes, oh, no, already introduced. And I said, dude, this is how I make my living. And you're interfering with that right now. And I called you and talked to you about this job, and you need to send me your CV so I can send it to the client. The client was cool enough to take it from me. But that kind of stuff happens all the time. Once every couple of months, I'll read one of Jeremiah's placement stories, and it starts with, this this doc wasn't clear at first. So if the client says, we have that name, my response is yes, but do you have the CV? If the client says, we know of Dr. Smith or Dr. Jones or whoever, I say, well, you know of him or her, but have they been presented? And even if they have them in a database from 5 years ago or whatever, get the details, find out what's going on. That way we can, maybe it was a 5-year-old introduction that some other firm made, and if you can find that out from the client, then you can say, well, I'm talking with Dr. Smith right now, and Dr. Smith has told me he's interested in your position, and if you work with me on this, we're going to have a much better chance of getting this physician placed. So can I present him right now? And a whole lot of our clients are just going to say yes to that because we're making their job easier. And, I've had clients tell me at least a couple times per year, they'll say, we know this candidate, but if you can get them on the phone with us, or if you can make it happen, then we'll work with you there. And it goes to very often with self-introductions, procuring cause that's the word I use, that if a doc self-introduced, then we can claim to be procuring cause of that self-introduction. So there's I don't think there's a need to get antagonistic with the client right off the bat, but if you ever are going to get antagonistic, I think it's when you've told the doctor of a position, that doctor self-introduces, it happens so rarely that I don't even hesitate. When a candidate asks me, where's that job? I used to go, oh, well, it's 20 miles south. I'll just tell them right now, and then I'll try to work it. And it never bites me on the butt. Another one is when a client has a hold on new candidates. They're telling us that they're not taking any more names because they have enough new candidates. Well, that's time to find out and to push for our candidate and to emphasize the relationship you have with the candidate, and the candidates, something about your candidate that's going to sound better than the other ones that they're working with. Whether it's, and Ian has a whole list of these down in the notes below. So please review that so you can have some good pushback for when a client tells you that they're not taking any more candidates. Need someone sooner. That's a big, whether they're not going to clear a name or whether you send the candidate and they say, we need somebody sooner than, for instance, it's going to start coming up on 2026 residents as we get in the early part of the year, the clients who say they need somebody soon, say within 4 to 6 months, would not now want to clear 2026 residents. Well, as July 1 of 2026 gets closer, the credentialing window and how long it takes to hire those people is the same for a resident as it is for a practicing doc. Could be even less time because a practicing doc might have to give notice. So if a client tells you in December that the client doesn't want to work with a new resident just because they need somebody sooner, you can automatically come back with, dude, you're not going to get an experienced doctor started before July 1st anyway. So take my resident. And then something I've used several times and it's really beneficial is when and this is Dr. Terandez out in Dallas. Tina's legendary for placing doctors with him. He pushed back on a candidate last year and said, I need somebody sooner. And I said, look, for an endocrinologist, you're looking at 2 or 3 months to interview, and um, another month to negotiate a contract, and 3 months to credential. And dude, you're already into March or April. My candidate's July, so come on. And he said, oh no, I need somebody sooner. And then sure as hell, and well, like I said, I'll be back, okay. And then sure as hell, a month later, he wants to talk to this candidate, and he signed her. So the closer it gets to when they need a doctor, the more you can use just show them the math. They should know it. They should know how long it takes to recruit a physician. But I always say it's going to take you 2 to 3 months to interview and hire a candidate. That's getting site visits set up and all that. It's going to take you a month to negotiate, and it's going to take you 3 months to credential. So you're looking at 7 or 8 months on a good day. Now, truth be known, we could have started talking sometimes in 2 months, but that's not how I'm going to present that challenge to the client, to make it seem like our time window with the candidate that we have is more in their favor. There's a whole bevy of reasons when a client tells us they're not moving forward with a candidate, and sometimes there's nothing we can do about it. Sometimes there's clearly obvious something we can do about it. Other times it's tricky and we got to figure it out. But in any case, we need to know why they're not moving forward, and we need to do whatever is within our power to counter that. And this is also where I want to bring in my manager and the leadership team. There's also, I put a little note on the possibility that a client simply misunderstands what's going on. The client does not understand something from the candidate. It could be, probably 4 or 5 times a year, I'll be cutting and pasting my send outs, and I see these with my own clients from you guys, where you cut and paste an intro and you leave something from an old intro in there, and it says this doctor's looking exclusively wherever, and it's the wrong state. And that we got to recover from that right away. But we can, we regularly get doctors turned down because of those type of silly mistakes, and we don't always know automatically why they're getting turned down. But very often it's simply a misunderstanding, and as recruiters, it's our job to know what that misunderstanding is and possibly patch it up. So there's a bunch of stuff here I'm going to send out on some stories regarding some times that we push back and were successful. I have one just from about a month back, where this is at Olympic Internal Medicine in Bremerton, Washington. And I found him just the perfect candidate. And they loved his CV, but they said, we can't hire this guy because he already works at the hospital that's supporting our recruitment. So he was a hospitalist at this hospital for a third-party service, and he wanted to work outpatient. And this outpatient clinic in Bremerton sends their patients to this hospital this guy already worked at. So we can't talk this hospital into paying a fee for a doctor who already works there. And it's like, so what did I do? I got on the phone to Dave and I said, okay, what the hell do I do here, man? Because they love this guy. And, our response was pretty basic and simple. And that is, recruiting firms or private practices pay their own recruiting bills all the time, and you know, this is going to cost you $30,000, and you're going to get a guy who's going might be there 20 or 30 years. So come on, get out your pocketbook, you know, or your checkbook, and it would, you know, it worked. They hired the guy like 2 weeks later, and you know, so it was like a hard no. In fact, it was a hard no like 3 times. It's like, would you consider this? Would you consider that? And they're like, no, no, no. And then it's like, come on, and then like, go talk to your lead physician and see what they say. And then, you know, at the end of the day, they said yes, and they signed a doctor. And if I hadn't been willing to, and again, my effort here was proportional to how good I knew the deal was. It was a good deal for them. It was a good deal for me too, but and for the doctor. Everybody was better off. And I knew it, and fortunately, my counterpart at the practice knew it. So all she had to do was get with the physicians and talk them into parting with. And I also knew this clinic, these guys are thinking of closing this damn practice because they're having some doctors retire and they need some doctors there. And they're thinking of closing the practice because they don't have physicians. And for $30,000, I'm offering them a way out of shutting down their business. It's like, come on, it's nothing. So anyway, that was a great pushback story for me. And usually about twice a year, I get to enjoy that. And it's, you know, if ever there's a feeling in doing this job, I mean, my favorite part of the job is when I mean, aside from making a pretty decent living and working kind of, you know, some pretty good hours, when I get to make a difference in someone's life, you know, whether it's to bring a new physician into a town or some doctor who doesn't know where, you know, where, you know, some town in Montana doesn't have any idea where it even is. And then 3 months later, they're moving there, and they're moving there because of me. That's a pretty cool feeling. But a good source of immediate satisfaction for me is when I get to really put on my my sales hat and find a way to make something happen that wasn't going to happen without me. And that's so pushing back with clients is a great way to do that. So that's all I have to say. We can open the floor for questions or for you guys to throw down on any interesting stories you might have that where you pushed back and it worked or didn't work or whatever.
I'll jump in real quick just to kind of expand on your pushback on when they tell you they're not interested in your doc. And I find a really good way to just kind of figure out why. Sometimes the clients don't want to disparage your candidate or send you any kind of bad feedback or throw the doc under the bus. And a lot of times what I'll go to is I'm just trying, hey client, I just want to make sure that we're screening our candidates the right way based on what you guys need. So obviously this candidate that I thought was a good fit isn't a good fit. So why don't you help me out with telling me why he wasn't a good fit so we can use that information on future candidates, not to go back and tell Dr. Smith why you turned him down, but to know how we can do a better job going forward. And a lot of times the clients will be a little more prone to giving you that feedback on your doctor. And if there's something in there that you can dispute or correct on their end, then you can use that information. But sometimes they're reluctant to give you that information. So I use the guise of doing a better job screening future candidates. Can you tell me why he wasn't a fit so we don't send you similar candidates? And that's just a little something I wanted to add because it helps the clients to open up sometimes and give you that feedback that they might be reluctant to share with you because they think, oh, you're just going to go back to Dr. Smith and tell him what happened and why we don't like him. And that's not really what you're doing. I mean, you want that information for yourself in case you can try to save it. But if they're like, okay, well, this guy's going to give us the candidates we want in the future in a better way, then they might be more prone to giving you that information. So that's a good way to get the feedback on your doc when your client turns them down.
And I was just going to add, when we talk about doing pushback, even when we talk about doing takeaways, doesn't mean you got to be a jerk about it. You can push back nicely. You can push. You can say why it's in their best interest for this pushback, or what, to change their mind on something. Doesn't mean you have to come in and be like, just forget it, Just be nice about it. Be professional. It works.
Yeah, we have too many candidates, Chris. We're not taking any more docs. Well, client, I'm pretty sure this doc is going to knock half of your candidates off the list because he's better than most of your candidates. Now Chris said if you had if this was maybe a reach of a send out, that's maybe not the right time to use that. But you got a doc that is going to be a good candidate, and they're giving you, we have too many candidates. Then you go back and say, this guy's, I would almost bet, I'd guarantee that this doc is going to probably end up somewhere near the top of the list of candidates you already have, client.
This candidate is going to make you look good.
And so often you can just put your best effort in. Like there was a hospitalist out in Wenatchee, Washington, and he just loved the idea of going there. This guy's in Oklahoma. He just researched Wenatchee and loved the idea of going there. And by the time I got him introduced, they already had enough candidates in the pipeline. And I kept trying. I'm like, come on, Debbie, come on. This guy, you're going to love him, And she ultimately, who knows? Maybe they'll interview the guy at some point. But I went down swinging because I knew in my heart that it was a good deal for everyone. And, if you swing like that, you're going to connect, quite a bit of the time. So.
Somebody's got some stories out there. Come on. Who's got some good pushback stories?
Don't everybody speak at once.
Are we talking only work? Are we talking only work? If we're talking only work,
apparently we ran out of work stuff to talk about, Jerry. So what do you got?
No, I'm going to leave this one off the table and just wait for a better pushback story on work. That's for sure. But I do want to reiterate one thing. These are key words, I think, too, and that is we work in a good faith industry. And most of the time that good faith works out. I'm talking 99% of the time. Like any profession or like any situation, there's some bad apples. So that 1% sometimes will stand out. Like if you got burnt by somebody going behind your back, or burnt by some introduction that you should have got that you didn't get, and next thing you know, the doc's placed in there. Or the one that's even worse, I think, the one that you didn't take action on, the one that you find out 3 weeks after the physician places there that we had the doc CV and the job in our database at the time when everybody came together, and the only thing that was missing was your activity and your actions. Those are the ones that hurt, in my opinion, way more than the ones where you actually maybe get burnt somehow, the ones where you don't take the activity. So again, I say push things forward with your clients as much as possible. Let them make decisions on who they want to bring in. Our job is to search for and find candidates and introduce them, right? And it's their job to hire them, their job to make decisions on whom to hire. So really our job is technically sometimes done right when we get that CV sent out. So again, that's the most important part. Make sure that if you're getting turned down, that you're getting turned down for a real reason. And really the only real reason is that somebody beat you to the punch during this search cycle. We hear it a lot, like, oh, Jerry, that candidate actually works in our town. We know them very well. That's so awesome. I love it when I can introduce somebody that's already known. You guys got built-in references. Let's roll. When could they interview, Take advantage of those opportunities as much as possible. But I'd love to hear some more pushback stories now.
I have one. I don't think Lindsay's on here right now, but she for the first time ever, I got my clients in Rifle, Colorado to reconsider a candidate that they initially turned down. That's never happened before. That client, as soon as they see the CV, if there's something they don't like, it's just a no, and it stays a no until now. Basically, this candidate had to stop with their residency, and it was due to something along the lines of I don't know, whoever was in charge had some professionalism issues, and it was a situation where the candidate had to stop with the residency on a dime, but on the CV it just looks like they quit in the middle of their residency, and we just kind of were adamant with the client that like they left the residency, yes, but it was on good terms and it wasn't due to any sort of negative situation on the candidate. And he's happy to explain everything to you. He's got good references, he's got good credentials, and I think Lindsay even got the candidate to reach out to the client directly. Now that may not be a wise move with every client, but with this one it was. And they had an initial phone call this week, and they're still moving forward. So that's a great job by Lindsay.
Yeah, thanks, Tanner. I'm glad you brought that one up. Lindsay's birthday is today, so she took the day off. But yeah, that's a good one. Lindsay knew this doc had fine background. I think it's a U.S. born and trained doc, and just loved the idea of rifle. So like Lindsay knew this doc was all about this job, and wanted to be in Colorado. Did not want to be in Denver. I mean, it couldn't be better. So between Tanner and Lindsay, they did a great job getting this thing going. And yeah, that's a good one, Tanner.
Something else that we can always do is revisit clients that were, or candidates that were turned down, or candidates that turned down an offer. Revisit them 6 months or a year and a half later. Or even after that, if we can get them reintroduced, because so often a doctor will take a job somewhere and won't like the job, and they'll be back on the market. And so staying in touch with your old stuff that didn't work out, I think, is pretty important. I just signed a doctor in what's the name of that place that's 2 miles up in the air in Colorado?
Leadville.
Leadville, yeah. And she was introed 1.5 years ago, and turned him down, and then decided she wanted to go there. So, the client was ecstatic about it.
I don't know if
How about
Emily's
you,
on
Chris
here.
Wolf?
What about? Are you?
Oh,
Well, I mean, I could.
You've got to have more.
That one just came to mind. I mean, I think daily we push back, and I think that's the most important thing. Is when you were talking about earlier, being consistent and persistent with it. Is just having that mentality of always thinking, well, how can I turn this around in our favor, my favor, this candidate's favor, and turn it towards where it will be in the client's favor. So that's just the mentality. So I think when it becomes a natural response or natural progression of thinking, that's kind of where I'm at. So it always just seems natural.
I had to push back on in a different type of manner. One of these clients I was searching for in the area, they pushed back, say, "Hey, we don't want any 2026s right now." And I'd already sent this candidate to about 6 other clients. So I was like, "Hey, respect." And I saw that we had already asked this client about 4 weeks ago for 2026, and they still said no. So I thought, well, if he keeps seeing us with a consistent message, he'll get the idea. So I said, "Listen, I understand this might not be what you wanted to do, but there's a change in the market, and this candidate is local, and they have sent them to 6 competitors that surround you. Just wanted to be upfront and clear with you in that way." And he said, within 5 minutes, got a response, cleared, send it over. Then I hit up the other person, I think it was Evan. I was like, "Hey, just so you know, I just got 26s cleared, let's send them through." So a bit of a pushback, and you had to be firm, but also like, hey, I try to do it just to let them know this is, this job is always shifting every year. This is the latest transition. So just being upfront with you, what do you want to do? And that worked out well.
Nice job, Levi. I'll say this too, everybody, just to put this in your bag. When you get the pushbacks on don't want 2026s or don't want next year's residents yet, you can tell the clients a lot of times the very best of those classes who have their act together the most take jobs early, and they are going to be off the market. So do you want to have a chance at having some of the best of the next year's class right now? Or are you going to wait around for the dregs that haven't gotten a job in December yet? And of course, I'm being facetious because you know, there could be a great candidate that hasn't started their search yet. But telling these folks, like, the very best candidates are going to be off the market by the time you come around looking at these. Are you sure you want to not even sniff these great candidates who are motivated and usually have great paper? I want to get off the market soon and focus the rest of the year on their residency and have a job tied up, because you don't want to do that. If you're going to wait till January, you're definitely missing all the best residents. And so that's another good way to try to break that ice with the clients, and just let them know you might be missing out on some really good candidates if you're just going to wait on these 2026s, because the best ones usually go off the market first.
And you can always say, so would you rather have a great 2026 grad or somebody who has to get a job for some unknown, uncommentable reason? You want to wait for a good doctor, or you want to hire somebody right now of questionable skill set? And you'll be surprised at how fast they'll switch over to the 26. So, well, we're almost at an hour, so it's Friday.
One place I want to jump in really quick that I haven't heard about it yet here in this meeting, and that is pushing back on the fee, you guys. I think I can't really see everybody on the video, but if I ask for a raise of hand of who likes a 30K fee over a 24K fee, I'd have to assume that everybody in this video is going to raise their hand, correct? And
All
that's a
hands.
place where you should push back on. Higher fees attract more activity. We're a firm of 30 people with 4,000 plus signed contingency agreements. Our average fee year to date is slightly over $28,000. We're knocking it out of the park. Our goal at the beginning of the year, as you recall, 26K. It's almost going to be impossible for us to get down below 26K average fee by the end of the year. I'm going to go ahead and say it is impossible. So we're going to fall someplace between 26 and 28, and right now we're 28. So you got to get fees on paper and fees that excite yourself and your colleagues to do this work. And that is something that you could literally lean into when you're getting these new fees is, hey, this is a good job. This is an opportunity that I think I could fill. It's going to be somewhat challenging. I want to bring my team in, but I got to attract the players. I got to attract the people that want to play with me. And to attract them, we're going to need at least 28, 32, 33, whatever it is that you're coming up with. Lean into that and be willing to wait. Don't just like give in right away. I mean, we had a recent situation, I think in Ashland, Kentucky, where we billed 20K for a hospitalist. Maybe it was even 18K. It was really low. And we just wouldn't send them candidates. And they eventually got stuff done. And they got stuff done outside of the box too. They told us it was going to take longer. It did take forever, but it took less time than they said it was once they realized we were going to stick to our guns and not send candidates. And we're going to have to do that more frequently when we want to bump up some of these fees with clients that maybe have a lot of jobs and or a lot of activity. We can't be afraid to do that. And it's something that we're going to continue to do until we level out right around, again, I'm thinking around that 35 to 40K level. It might take 3 to 4 or 5, maybe 6 years to get there, but that's where we're going to end up eventually. And so keep pushing those fees and keep leaning into them, and don't be afraid to push back on seeking higher amounts on the premise that, hey, one, I want my team to get excited, and two, I want to lock you in for the next 3 to 5 years. I don't want to have to go do this again every 2 years because of inflation, you know? So keep that in mind at that phase of the game as well. Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Nice job, man.
Good job.
Good stuff.
All right, let's go finish this week strong.
Thanks, guys.
Take care,
guys.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.